So my names are Carol Ndosi, Carol Moses Ndosi. I am based in Dar es Salaam, although originally from Arusha. I've been in development work, I would say officially since 2016. My work revolves around sustainable development. So most of it is around transforming education, skills, development, the future of work, gender equality, digital inclusion, equitable inclusion, and lifelong learning. So I think through that work, I actually arrived officially claiming myself as a feminist in the space. So 2011, I started my own company, an events management company, running the largest barbecue festival in Tanzania and East Africa called the Nyama Choma Festival. And being the only woman in the space, people used to say, and especially my peers in the feminist movement that I had started getting to know at the time, they were like, you're such a feminist. Look at you. You're in a male-dominated space. You're pushing, you're doing all these things. Like, so that's when I was actually introduced to the word feminist as feminist. And then I started learning about it, trying to also identify where I also fit in with my feminism. And I think in 2016, that's when I decided that, okay, I will merge my sense of feminism in what I believe feminism was to be, and then merge that with the local specific context, which was women economic advancement at the time. At the heart of digital inclusion, we have digital rights. And yes, for us in this space, we actually believe that digital rights are human rights. And this came into passing, I think, in 2016, even when the UN recognized that the right to internet is a human right because it's equivalent to the right to access of information and the right to access, or the right to freedom of expression. So we do actually in the feminist movement, but not just in the feminist movement, in the digital inclusion movement, in the digital rights movement, we actually believe that digital rights are human rights. And the reason being, if you take away that digital right, you're taking away so many things, so many possibilities away from this citizen or from this person or from this being. It could include the right to vote, because right now voting in some countries has also been integrated with electronic systems, but even the right to get, just day-to-day information in the community, health information, rights and responsibilities of the citizen. How do you familiarize yourself with the law if it's not for digital platforms, How do you engage with respective authorities? So with digital platforms or the digital world comes sort of like another spectrum that citizens and, people can use to further advocate for their own human rights, but to further maybe spotlight like what else they need to be done in their community to effect change or to lead to improved livelihood. So definitely digital rights are human rights, and that would I would park at the forefront the right, the right to access, the right to participate, and affordability. Those would be the three things that I would encompass in digital rights as human rights. I'm part of a regional network called Women at Web, which has representation in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. And what we have been doing is using the feminist approach to technology, encouraging women's online participation. And our feminist approach to technology is basically enabling and advocating for meaningful and equal access of technology. So the way we look at it is we always have to use a feminist lens in terms of acknowledging first that not having access to technology disproportionately affects women in different communities. So the way perhaps I would be affected from lack of access to technology would be different from a woman, for example, in rural Arusha. But the feminist approach to technology would be actually acknowledging all these limitations and actually acknowledging or be cognizant of the fact that the way women and men access technology is different because of different reasons. So it could be the sociocultural reasons, which are mainly due to the patriarchal system and the positioning of a woman in the society. There are societies or communities that a woman owning a phone, and being active online is seen as something that is not proper for a woman. So the feminist approach to technology would be acknowledging all these reasons and all these challenges and all these limitations that women face when it comes to equal access and usage of technology, and addressing them by advocating for, policy change, mindset change in the community and in the society, law change when it comes to, for example, the cybercrime laws and how they can incorporate, a feminist lens and a gender lens, in acknowledging that there is actually a high prevalence of online gender-based violence, and it's one of the leading reasons affecting women's online participation. When it comes to gender-based violence, we have seen, and data doesn't lie, we have seen an increase of GBV, domestic violence in households during COVID-19, but then that also escalated, or was very much escalated, in online spaces. We don't see a gray area between online and offline. To us, gender-based violence is gender-based violence, whether it's online or offline. It doesn't matter. And the way we look at it is, as feminists, we are yet to arrive at a space where we are confident that if we report these cases, these GBV or GBV cases to the respective authorities, they are going to get the same amount of attention compared to if it was done offline. Because, for example, the Tanzanian police force has a gender desk where you can actually go and report GBV cases. But when it comes to OGBV, it has to be merged with the cybercrime unit. And unfortunately, when it comes to the sort of like the sociocultural norms of Tanzania, it has been a stumbling block for us, because even when you leave feminism aside, it's been very hard to explain what online gender-based violence looks like to the Tanzanian police force. So the first step that we had to take was actually convene them and do a mindset change workshop and sensitization and mobilization, and say, you know what, this is OGBV, this is what it looks like, and this is how it's happening. And you cannot be silent, and you cannot be shunning away victims when they come to the police stations. So it has been hard when it comes to feminism and OGBV in Tanzania, because one, as you're aware, feminism is very negatively connotated in Tanzania. So the misconception is all about the emasculation of men. It's all about taking the power from men and giving it to women. It's all about, excluding men from all these programs and all these initiatives that we have. It has had sort of like a trickle-down effect, even when it comes to the people, the law enforcers and the people who are supposed to be at the forefront fighting these things. And unfortunately, some of us have not been able to actually go and identify ourselves as feminists when we are reporting these cases. You actually have to say, I'm just an activist, or an active citizen, because the minute you say feminism, it just becomes another problem. In feminism, we believe in the right of expression, body expression by women, my body, my choice. So, for example, you go and report an OGBV case, a woman is wearing, for example, a miniskirt, and she just posted it on her social media, and she starts getting attacked and, threats, and, she starts getting rape threats. And you go to the police or the respective authorities and you report this, or even the general public, when you try to call it out on social media, they would be like, but she wanted it. She was asking for it. She was, she was wearing a miniskirt. And as a feminist, I'm thinking, no, no, that's not, she has every right to wear whatever that she wants. It's her body. She can do whatever that she wants. Your right is also to ignore if you feel that that content, does not resonate with your values or your principles. So we're yet to arrive at a space where we can actually say, my freedom ends where yours begins, but then acknowledge that I have the same digital rights as you, but also your digital responsibility should also be calling out offensive or violent or, abusive content as just a digital citizen, because that's how it should be, basically. With the digital platform, everything has been made easier. You look at how For example, news travels fast, and in this particular era of citizen journalism, everyone is equipped with a device where they could actually share information instantly, and it can be received instantly and responded to instantly. So it has definitely made mobilizing easier. Like a few days ago, there was this lady who was abused online. She was threatened to be raped. It was via, direct messages like inbox on Twitter, but what she did was she took that direct message and she brought it onto the timeline, and she asked people to report their account. People started doing that. So within like 2-3 hours, 6 hours, everyone was on that account. Like we had a response, Twitter had responded, on the abusive context. So mobilizing has been significantly easier because of, the pace of the way information travels today and how many people you can reach, as opposed to how, for example, our elders or the people before us had to actually convene people in one space. If it's a call to action or if it's a petition, you would have to actually distribute the paper from person to person, household to household, to get them to sign. We have been able to get ourselves heard way faster compared to, without technology. We have seen responses from respective authorities on different issues, as long as it has been mobilized online or called for from online platforms. We have seen, leaders really trying to be part of the conversation, really trying to engage with the people. So it has definitely brought that sense of engagement. It has definitely increased that sense of engagement from the respective actors, I would say. But for example, when it comes to gender-based violence, and particularly online gender-based violence, one thing that we have realized is, as much as we can mobilize on our own, as much as we can sensitize on our own, we also need to get other actors in. So for example, if you report abusive content to these digital platforms, the likes of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, the level of response that you would get if you're based in Sub-Saharan Africa is definitely different from the response that you would get if you were, for example, in Europe or the US. What they have highlighted or shared back to us is obviously they use algorithms. So most of this is machines, bots responding to us. But then when it comes to language, there's also an issue because most of this context is in Swahili. So even when you report it, it's become an issue. So even when you're mobilizing, for example, digital rights and, spotlighting all this offensive or abusive content online, accountability of this on, digital platforms has still been lagging, when it comes to acting promptly in, taking down that abusive content or, deactivating these accounts. So that has actually been a very big challenge. And one thing that we are trying to push for right now is having an industry-based approach to really trying to push for digital rights as human rights, because the role of these digital platforms really needs to be acknowledged, and they really need to come through and show up because they have a very big role to play in this. Clearly, I wouldn't be here identifying myself as a feminist if it wasn't for the shoulders that I'm standing on. And that means, the women and men who advocated for feminism before me. So I always look at it as how we can learn from one another, best practices, shared learnings and outcomes. One thing that I've noticed that makes us stand out, like the feminists today compared to other feminists before us, is how outspoken we are, how we are freely able to express ourselves without worrying about whether or not I'll get divorced, whether or not I'll be shunned away by society, whether or not I'll be dubbed as a man hater, although that still happens online. But I think with us is one thing that we can definitely share with them is speaking truth to power. That is something that we have been able to do unapologetically, and I believe that that's not something that they were able to freely do during their time. And obviously they didn't have spaces like all these online platforms that one could easily use to express their opinions. So it's very important for feminists to actually understand the movement and acknowledge the fact that it has never been about a battle between men and women. It has been about equality, equality of rights, equality of access, equality of usage, equality, 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 and equitable inclusion, basically. So I feel like that's something that perhaps, and obviously I would say that I would understand like where they were coming from, because it was like, if you listen to the feminists before us, it was mostly like some of them were really coming from a place of anger. And obviously this speaks into their experiences and what they have been subjected to. But I would say one thing that we can share with them is how we have been able to take that anger and flip that, or rather convert it into this energy now that drives us into advocating for equal spaces every single day.